Hi, my name is Suzan McDowell, and welcome to In the Circle with Suzan. I am president and CEO of Circle of One Marketing, a full-service marketing agency here in Miami that focuses on the Black and the Black community, African American and Caribbean consumers. So I'm so excited to be at my show. I don't know which show this just show number. Who knows the number? We got to count. But every other week I get to come here and talk about, what I want to talk about. And we're in the middle of spring. It's actually, even though I was born in July, April is kind of my favorite month because it's so springy and beautiful. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy it's Thursday and, tomorrow's Friday and I get to play for the weekend. We all do. So that is the good news. That's a happy part of this show. The other part of this show is we're going to take you. Normally I come to you with some fun and frivolity, but today we're going to talk about something very, very seriously, and that is human and sexual trafficking. With my very lovely guest, Mr. Victor Williams. Hi, Victor.
Hey, Suzanne. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So Victor and I have known each other for a gazillion years. I think I met you in my Hot 105 days.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Did I work for Hot when I met you?
Probably, yeah.
Probably.
I think you were doing a little bit of everything.
Was I doing? Okay,
yeah.
Maybe I was Circle, but Circle's 22 years old.
Yeah.
And I met you a long time ago. Anyway,
yeah.
Vic and I have known each other for a long time, running the same circles and equally driven professionals. So Vic is the former special agent with Homeland Security, and has learned a lot about the subject of trafficking. Before we get into the trafficking conversation, I'm going to ask you what I ask everyone. Vic, start from the beginning. I was born, and then what happened?
Well, I was born in Norfolk, Virginia, and I graduated high school in Northern Virginia around the D.C. area. When I graduated high school, I didn't go to college right away. I went into the U.S. Coast Guard. Round about my 8th year in the Coast Guard, chasing a dream to drive go-fast boats with U.S. Customs, because that's when we met, when I was working with Customs.
That's when you did that Miami Vice thing?
Exactly.
That's what you wanted to do? That was your life goal?
Exactly. So my last duty station was, I came to Miami in 1990 with the Coast Guard, chasing that dream that came true. Working with U.S. Customs, I started August of 91.
Oh, wow.
December of 91.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started with Customs, then I went to Barry University, got a degree. Once I got my degree with Barry, I ended up going to Atlanta for 5 years. Mm-hmm. I think it was year 2000. I went to Atlanta as a customs agent, but returned to Miami in 2005 as a Homeland Security special agent.
So what's the difference? Apparently, is that a big deal? Is that a bigger? I don't know.
No. So remember, Homeland Security came about after 9/11.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah,
we were one of the first agencies that handled the TSA recruitment.
Right. So what happened, they merged U.S. Customs, Immigration, and a lot of agencies together.
Oh.
And so Homeland Security, I became an agent for Homeland Security Investigations, mm-hmm. which is the investigative arm for Homeland Security, like FBI is for DOJ.
Mm-hmm.
So came back here in 2005. I was assigned to the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, worked with one of our good friends.
Tony.
Yes. Worked with the FBI, and had an opportunity to go to Botswana, Africa. Mm-hmm. At the International Law Enforcement Academy is when I first got my first class in human trafficking. And I heard the words modern day slavery in the United States, and being an African American, mm-hmm. slavery in the United States, it kind of
get abolished.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
A long time ago.
And
also in French or Creole, it's a Restavik. Right?
Yes, that's exactly. That's a little bit of that. Yeah, that's some cultural stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I left, I was at Botswana at the International Law Enforcement Academy as a class coordinator. Now, these international academies, there are 4 of them worldwide. The one in Botswana serviced the entire continent of Africa. Mm-hmm. And so United States creates relationships with countries, so they send their mid to high level law enforcement to these academies and all the 3-letter agencies, FBI, DEA.
Got it. All over the world.
Well, just from the continent of Africa.
I mean, all over Africa, but
Right.
now you get to learn your skills in that country.
Right. We're teaching them what we do.
Oh, you go and you teach them.
Yes, we're teaching them how we do things.
Gotcha.
And for
but you're
me,
also learning from their culture.
of course, and that's a good point, because a lot of people who had that opportunity, once the class start, they go in the office and sit, wait till the class.
Mm-hmm.
I actually sat with my class, and I sat with them and learned how they learned and what they were learning, and we learned together, and it just made the relationship a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taught, I first went to the International Law Enforcement Academy in Botswana, but I also taught in the one in Budapest, Hungary, which serviced the continent of Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I get back to Miami, and my time is up with the FBI, and now I picked 3 areas to go, because at that time, Homeland Security, we cover a lot of, we got like 23 different groups, focuses on, meaning 23 different crimes that we, engage in. And I got picked for human trafficking. And
so you didn't ask for it.
It was on my list.
So would they have like Vice, DEA?
So we have like drug units,
okay.
and then we have smuggling units, and then we have crime against, like
SVU or
just any, all those type of crimes. Yeah. So human trafficking was one of the groups, and it was on my list. I didn't know the difference between human trafficking and human smuggling.
Yeah, what is
and
the
just
difference?
To punch that in right quick, human smuggling is a crime against the border. It's a voluntary thing where people like, hey, sneak me into the U.S.
Got it, and then
they
you got
sneak
smuggled.
you in, and then you're free to go.
Yeah, but you don't get free to go.
You are free to go.
Yeah.
That's
smuggling. Okay,
right.
gotcha.
Human trafficking, you don't need a travel across a border to have trafficking. But if you're in another country and you go sneak me into the country and I sneak you in, but then I exploit you, it's a crime against the person.
Yeah, gotcha.
So whenever you hear smuggling, it's a crime against the border voluntarily. Human trafficking is a crime against the person involuntary.
Gotcha.
So so when I got to the group, it was life altering. I can go into some details. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'll give you this quick thing. I knew I would be working in human trafficking for the rest of my life when I heard the story, the impact statement of a victim that the men who trafficked her were going to go to trial because these women, it was about 8 or 9 women that were like, we're not trafficked. That's how traumatized they were.
Yeah, like we're here willingly.
Yeah, but we realized that one of the women in the group was part of the trafficking family, which kept them afraid. So when we pulled that lady out, all the women came clean. Now these men pled out. They pled out. So when she
So that one woman.
Well, it was 7 of them.
No, I'm saying that
one woman kept them all. Yeah, kept them all like afraid. And so the men changed their plea to guilty, and now we're at sentencing, and victims get to give their impact statements. And so when she talked about, they took her from the age of 14. They trafficked her for 12 years. She was brought here to serve. I don't know if you've ever been down to Homestead and in the fields where people
they pick the tomatoes and
that dirty job, right?
Yeah.
Well, these men didn't go home and change clothes, put on cologne. They left those dirty fields and went to a trailer where she was forced, and I ain't gonna use the word sex, where she was raped 15 to 25 times a day. And you can imagine the disgust that she talked about.
Oh my God!
And I don't know what hit me, but at that moment, at that moment, I knew I would be working this for the rest of my life. And so fast forward from there.
That's amazing how what humans can do to other humans.
Yeah, and I hope we get to talk about how that comes about.
Wow.
But
that is.
Yeah, but to finish up where we are is that, so I worked in that group, and it like I said, for the last 8 years of my career, I worked human trafficking, and it changed me as a man. It changed me as a human being. And so when I give my speeches, sit on panels, whatever, I teach from this learned experience that, it changed me. And
how did it change you exactly?
Well, it just gave me, so I talk a lot about human trafficking is mostly culture. A lot of things we do is cultural. So being a male raised in America, I did a lot of stupid things, not knowing it was causing harm. And so once I was learning, it began to change my life. And like I say, I teach from this area of if most men knew what I knew and decided to act on it, we can change this.
You could change a whole trajectory.
Yeah. So I always believe this is one that we can win.
But you can't. But yes, you can win it. But people are mostly ordinary. Mostly, meaning you're not. It takes a fighter like you. Not everyone is a fighter. Not everyone is somebody that's going to stand up and start a nonprofit and blah, 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 blah. So I worry about those people who just take it. You know what I mean? So yes, it would be awesome if men got up and did that. But I just feel like sometimes people are just.
Well, this is why
you know
I'm
what
here.
I mean? That's why we're leaders. That's why we're here.
And, having a show like this, because this is all about education and awareness. I think, people don't know about human trafficking. When they look at human trafficking, they just think about the movie Taken, and they think it's all about
I think
sex.
about Law and Order.
Yeah, but human trafficking, we're all part of the problem. So if someone goes, well, Vic, I don't go to strip clubs and I don't buy sex workers. Why do I need to know about human trafficking? And I know we're probably jumping the gun a little bit, but I say because labor trafficking is 60 to 70% of all trafficking. What does that mean? Well, if you own a cell phone and you can buy food and you can buy clothes, we have a minimum of 40 to 60 slaves working for us. The cobalt that goes into cell phones, that mineral is dug out in the Congo, dug out of the ground in the Congo, where families, children are being paid $1 just to, to work.
Just to dig out this thing that you're like,
so
oh my God, girl.
Exactly.
That thing, the thing that's so,
So I always say, like, the more we know, and remember, it's not what we know, is what we know and decide to act on it, right? So the more we know, and that's what I'm in. I'm in a campaign of education, trying to change culture. And, how you change culture is you educate people to the level that, the issue is that they really understand it. And then you have to have policies and laws. And the third thing is, like, now that you know and you're faced with dealing with that situation, is what do you decide?
What are you going to do? What kind of man are you going to be, basically?
Or woman, all of us.
So what percentage of the traffickers are male to female?
Well, mostly are male, but there are female traffickers. There are female traffickers.
Yes. No, I was actually having a conversation with a friend earlier, and she was saying, you would be amazed at how many women are in their trafficking. And this is before we had this conversation. You literally just told me the exact same story that you told me an hour ago on the phone, that a lot of them are women. And if I'm thinking about it, you're around, there's 7 girls there and you're all in the same thing. And there's one girl that's the leader, and, it's peer pressure. You could totally sit there and think that was normal. And then not that bad. And you pull that one influencer out and the whole thing falls apart.
It's a lot deeper. I tell people, like, traffickers and victims of trafficking are created in homes all around the world.
Like how?
And so if you're a parent and you've had trauma, we normally teach our kids the way we were taught, right? And there's a lot of trauma, especially in the Black community.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of trauma. This country was built off of slavery, which, most of the people think, oh, slavery is over, you should be okay. No, these are generational traumas that we've never healed. So unresolved trauma creates vulnerability, and that's what traffickers seek to exploit. So when I get to talk to parents, I'm like, parents, you need to create an avenue where your kid can trust to come talk to you. But that can't happen if you're not cleaning up your own traumas, right? And I know this, again, is jumping the gun, because this is the ultimate solution to me. I ask parents, what are you teaching your kids about love? Because love is the ultimate weapon against a lot of our society ills. Yeah. If you love yourself and you're taking care of yourself, that means you deal with a lot of your insecurities, right? And so when you're dealing with your own insecurities, and I'm saying, like, when you send that kid out the door having love, true love, not just the emotional.
No, like love.
We have to define. Like, I was in a conversation last night with some of my friends, like, we have to redefine what love means. And you look in the dictionary, it goes deep affection. Love is more than what you feel. It's
more than deep affection.
It's what you're doing.
It's what you do.
For yourself.
It's so what you do.
And I'm not a religious person, but I always say, love defined in the Bible is a good start. So if we start,
love is the answer. That's actually what I believe.
Yeah, Quest2Freedom. The tagline is love is everything.
Love is everything.
And we've used the word and abused it so much that it doesn't have meaning. That's why I say we have to redefine it. We have to give it action, because there are people going around, I love you, but they're mistreating you. They're selling you. They're doing a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
And there are people that are like, I'm in love with him, but he's mistreating you, or her. They're mistreating you. They're doing horrible things to you. But we're calling that love, and that's not love.
Damn.
And so emotions, it's really high. And so you could take a kid born in a family, and that's all they know. They're going to have deep emotions, but
and they don't even know why.
And I give you this, right before I retire, I got a call by a young lady. Her father trafficked her from a kid till she graduated high school. That means her father sold her for sex to friends and other people till she graduated. And when she called,
worked her like a slave.
He did. And
like
then
a sex. Well, yeah, that's exactly what you're saying.
And so,
but like her father.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, but when she called me, she goes, I want my dad to be held accountable, but I don't want him hurt. So what I'm saying is, we can create these emotional attachments to people that are hurting us, and we call that love. That's what I'm saying. Love is not about the emotions. Right? So I give you some statistics about Florida. Since, Florida is number 3 in the country.
Oh, wow.
Miami is number 1 in the state of Florida, but Miami is number 5 in the nation.
Oh, wow.
Houston is number 1 right now in the nation.
How is Houston number 1?
Think about it.
The Mexican border.
With the border that we're having right now, and
the
all the
influx of
issues.
people,
And, it's a lot of things going on. And so we really need to educate our children, our families, our communities. What does that look like?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what are the signs of trafficking? First of all, what are the levels of trafficking?
So let me give you,
and then what are the signs of trafficking?
Let me give you the history a little bit so you can understand the culture part and why is it so hard.
Yeah.
So we got our first human trafficking laws in the year 2000 when the United Nations got everybody together in Palermo, Italy, and said, countries, we got to address this issue. That year, the United States came up with the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, the TVPA. In that TVPA, this is how we define trafficking. And it's some words like transportation, harboring, but really the 3 elements that you got to have in a trafficking situation is force, fraud, or coercion. You got to have one of those 3 elements, right? Force is obviously, I beat you. Coercion is the threat of hurting you or taking something that you need. I tell people, if you have a need so strong, if you're not careful, people can exploit you for that need. And fraud being the most, is the weakest of the 3 elements. Hey, come to Miami, be a model. But when you get here, it's usually about force and coercion that they keep you. Now, those 3 elements only apply to adults. So that meant since the year 2000, there were no such thing as child prostitution.
You mean by law? By
law. But we have been arresting kids for sex work at least Florida had been arresting kids for 16 years. Well, let me correct myself. The year 2016 was when we finally put a law in the books. No more arresting kids for prostitution.
So so basically, because what you're saying is everything under the age of 18 is trafficking.
Yes.
It's whatever by their parents, by their whatever, but because it didn't start, it's like the whole slate is 0 until you get to 18.
Right.
All this stuff that happened to you doesn't exist.
You are a victim. And so when I talk about culture, it's like, why did it take the state 16 years? Why? And finish a little bit of my story. When I retired in 2018, I moved to Atlanta. I did a couple years team security for the Hawks, but I still stayed in contact with human trafficking stuff. When I left the Hawks, coming back to Miami, the state of Georgia got funding for human trafficking, and I was a human trafficking coordinator for a year for the state of Georgia, a whole new perspective. But it took Georgia 19 years to finally pass that law. Now, in 2012, they had a law called the Safe Harbor Act, which gave officers other options than arresting. So you ask yourself, 16, 19 years when the law said, what was it about the culture that still looked at children as...
Well, what was it? What is it about the culture? But
culture.
What culture? What culture is it okay to traffic a 12-year-old?
It's no culture okay with it, but the mentality of once a law comes out and say children are victims, why were we still arresting them when the law said they're victims? It took us a while because prostitution and pimping has been in our culture forever.
I mean, the original profession.
Well, I love you say that because I would hear that when I had a time when I was traveling around the country educating law enforcement, which is a dominant male world. And I would hear, oh, prostitution, the world's oldest profession. And I say, because we're the world's oldest customer, but actually farming is the world's oldest profession.
Because that was the beginning.
Farming.
All right, fine, farmers.
But the whole point is when I say that, people go, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah,
because we live in a culture that we look at the person that's selling who could be a potential victim as the bad person instead of looking at the men who created the market. So, in the old days, who got arrested?
Yeah, the prostitutes.
Exactly.
As opposed to the Johns.
Yeah. So this is culture that we have to change.
Do you feel like it's changing?
We got a lot of work to do. I take any progress over none. So we're constantly making progress. Right now, Florida is one of the leading states in this area.
Working on it.
Kathy Rundle, our U.S. attorney, is amazing. She's one of the top state attorneys in the country for things that she's done in this space. And so I give you an example. Florida was one of 3 to 4 states that if you are arrested, it's your right to have your accuser sit before you and your lawyers to go through a deposition before we go to trial. So if I got raped by 5 guys, 5 different lawyers get to put me in a room, question me about things that doesn't even exist about the case. Ms. Rundle fought 7 years to get this law change that says children shouldn't have to go through this.
No, because they're going to break.
They're already traumatized. And you got these men that has no interest in them at all.
No, they don't have interest in
protecting their client.
Yeah.
We've had to lose cases. Kids have, couldn't do it. They wanted to commit suicide because they're still dealing with the trauma. And so finally that law was passed this year. And this is crazy, but it's progress. If you're 16 and below, why not 17? Why not 18? If you're 16 and below, you do not have to go through that process if you're a victim of a sex crime.
So what's the cutoff then? What's the age? Is it 18?
Well, it should be 18.
Should be 18.
So
it's the 2 years that's missing.
Yeah, I'm like,
that's important.
Yeah, I mean,
2 years.
No adult should have to go through this, let alone children. But you stop at 16. This is the stuff that I'm talking about. Culture. Is this law going to be changed later? Probably. But why
how long?
Aren't we understanding now?
But then why? I mean, what is the actual reason? Did somebody introduce it into law with the number 16?
No.
So nobody in that whole thing went, you know what? We really should add those other 2 years. That never happened?
The bar here is very aggressive, right? They're very influential on our lawmakers. So, and most of them are lawyers. So the question is why, and the question I think they're not seeing this. If this is your child, do you want your 17-year-old sitting before 5 lawyers questioning them about things that don't even matter? We're not putting the human connection to this.
Together, yeah.
Put yourself in those shoes when you're making these decisions. But it's easy to sit back and...
just even if you look at abortion, you look at the women's right to choose. I think about this. You got a bunch of old white men. None of which can pop out a child at any point. None of which is even in the space that they're probably still even having sex. They have no frame of reference, and they have decided to take a woman's right to choose. Same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think everybody should have the right to do what they want to do
with your body.
Their body. I mean, so...
Anyway,
different subject.
That's another. I'm sorry. I'm very passionate about women's rights women's rights. Anyway, so tell us. I actually want to tell. Okay, so you obviously can see and feel your passion and the depth of your commitment and dedication to this. So, and I've known you for a long, long time.
Yes.
So this is not. Yeah, you're serious. So you have retired. So you could be off somewhere.
Yes.
being a bon vivant in Ibiza and all over the place,
Yes.
Caribbean.
Yes.
But you're here
Yes.
with your nonprofit working
Yes.
towards freedom.
I moved back here August of 2021 and kind of like doing exactly that. I'm retired. I didn't have to work for the rest of my life.
Chilling.
And April of 2022, I hear this story about a father who took his 15-year-old daughter to a Dallas Mavericks game. She went to the bathroom, and the next time he saw his daughter was 10 days later when she was being rescued from a hotel in Oklahoma being sold for sex. That same year, the NBA security conference was held in Miami before the season started, and I got in contact with some of my NBA contacts, and they had me do a presentation on human trafficking before the conference. And so it kind of like woke me up. I bought the domain Quest2Freedom when I retired in 2018, and it sat on a shelf while I was
Are you thinking about it? Yeah, I'm percolating.
After that conference, I did my own inner work. And this is what's important. We all have to do our inner work. If we want to accomplish that next goal in our lives, we got to go back and deal with that. So once dealing with my inner work and clearing up my own traumas, because working in this space, there is a secondary trauma.
Oh my God, I can imagine all the stuff that you've seen. You know what I mean? You're a human being.
Yes.
And I'm clearly a deeply, somebody who feels deeply. And so I mean, I can't even imagine looking at that every single day. Yeah. Over and over for decades.
Yes.
Like,
it's funny you say
that's a lot of trauma.
You know what? People don't understand how bad trauma is. There are more police officers killing themselves than dying in the line of duty. A lot of people don't know that. Oh, wow. Yeah, trauma. So trauma is serious, and it doesn't go away. No. You can't hide it. It will come out in some way, shape, or form. So dealing with my own traumas, I cut out a lot of things that I used to do.
But this is also how you're dealing with your trauma, is you're pouring all of your energy into this cause.
It's helping me have balance, because now I'm still faced with these same issues, but now because I have a little bit more control and understanding of myself, it's a balance. The traumas are still there, but they don't affect me. And when they do, I have methods.
You have tools, you have tools today,
because now I can recognize it, and then I deal with it.
And then you just get tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah, I mean,
you're like, let me just fix it.
There have been times like starting Quest2Freedom. So what happened? After this work, 10 days later, I woke up and Quest2Freedom was there. It had always been there. I just needed to go through some life,
it's
life
like, hey,
work.
baby, I'm here.
And so January 2003, we started Quest2Freedom. March of
2003? No, 2023.
2023.
Okay.
We started Quest2Freedom. 2023, March of 2000, we got our 501c3 authorization. And then it was like, now what do you do?
So wait a minute, your organization is less than a year old?
Well, it's a year plus now.
A year plus.
So we're in 2024. So yeah, we went over the first year. And what do we do at Quest? We want to educate. We want to have this conversation to educate people so that they understand this issue to the core.
And to recognize it.
Especially if you have kids.
Because how do you recognize it? We didn't talk about this. We have 2 minutes.
Well, I mean, if you got kids,
recognize it?
If you have kids and your kids are like, a lot of times in our community, we see our kids, they're young. They start out straight A's, great kids, great. And all of a sudden we see this decline. And we have a culture that we do, what's wrong with you? Instead of going, what happened to you? So
something happened to you.
Anything could have happened. In our families, we have a lot of, sexual things that happen that families don't want to talk about. Yeah. So we have to understand. So if your child is showing up with cell phones, clothes, things, grades dropping, you can't pinpoint it, it's time to find out help. It's time to get that child in front of a therapist to deal. And we have to see this. We can't beat our kids up. We have to be more loving to our kids. We can't yell at them at night and expect them to get a good night's sleep. And I'm stealing this from a thing that I saw a football player say. We can't yell at them in the morning and expect them to have a good day. We need to constantly give our kids love. But we can't give what we don't have. So we need to redefine what love is.
And love ourselves.
Actionable part of it. And love ourselves so we can give our kids love that give them that shield that when they go to school and they don't need to belong to this group, and they're not looking for this, and they can stand on that island. I don't care what you say about me. I can stand on that island because I love myself. I take away a lot of those vulnerabilities that traffickers seek to exploit.
Wow.
That is the solution. And I mean, we could talk about this for hours, but
we could,
and go into more detail, but that is the solution. Parents, deal with your traumas. Love your kids. Find out what love is. It's not just what you feel. We all can have deep emotions for people that are doing harm. But when you love yourself, you get to set boundaries. You can't speak to me that way. You can't treat me that way. And note this, a boundary is only a boundary when people cross them, they're held accountable. Not like they're constantly crossing the boundary. And you're like, I'm not going to do it anymore. But there's constantly
do it over and over.
You have to set your boundaries.
So,
so
anyway, so obviously I'm sure you are, tell us, what can we do to help you? Well,
I am having a fundraiser on April 20th at Smith & Walensky's. And again, we're trying to raise enough money. The ultimate is to be able to register Quest2Freedom with the national hotline.
Okay.
So in my experiences, when officers or service providers come across victims, sometimes we don't have anywhere to go. Sometimes there's no place to put them.
Wow.
So we want to fill those gaps. If you need a hotel for a night or a week to give you that safe and comfortable space.
To transition to something
we want to
safer.
be able to fill gaps. That's what we want to do, to give women a space, or men, because there is a high number of men and boys being trafficked, to give these victims a space to breathe, a space to feel safe. If it's just getting you back home, we want to be able to provide you with transportation, whether that's a bus or plane. If you need an Uber ride, we want to fill those gaps. And we know that these gaps still exist, because about a month ago, I was trying to help 8 victims that I'm helping from the Bahamas that are here labor trafficked. One of them has a 3-year-old daughter.
Wow.
And she's staying with her cousin, and her cousin boyfriend attacked her. She calls the police. She has nowhere to go. She called me. I called a hotline. No one there to provide a hotel. So we get her a hotel with the Uber ride. The International Rescue Committee, which is a great committee, they're spread out around the nation, but the one in Florida is amazing. They're like, Vic, get her here. We got a space. And I'm like, well, can you get her here? No. So that next day, we're on the phone about to buy her a plane ticket to come here. But,
so that's the kind of stuff that the organization wants to fund, those gaps.
Yes.
So how can I give you money? I want to give you some money.
Quest2Freedom.org. Go to our website, look at what we do, understand who we are, and donate.
Are you on Instagram?
We are. We're on Instagram. We're on, I want to steal your social media person.
You're not, though, but you're not. So isn't that funny how you're not? So it's www.QUEST2FREEDOM.org.
Or Q2F.org.
Or Q2F.org.
Yes.
Okay.
And, go to our website, support, our social media. Spread this word to everybody. Because, again, you may not think it's part of your life, but it's part of your life wherever you go, especially in Florida, because we may all know somebody
that's getting trafficked
that is here with document issues.
Gotcha.
And to know these laws and know their rights. They have rights. Just because you're here undocumented, you have rights. So if you can prove that something wrong is happening to you, work this extra job for this less money, these extra hours.
We're going to get cut off by YouTube.
Yes.
So
anyway. Q2F.org.
Q2F.org. Okay, thank you. I'll see you again on April 18th, I think it is. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne.